The subject line of the text message from my sister, Andrea, was a single TikTok link with just 2 words. Check this. The urgency was all in the follow-up text, which arrived seconds later and was all caps. Call me now. I was 28 years old and standing in the supply closet of my graphic design office, searching for a fresh ream of 20-pound matte paper. My hands were already full, but the capital letters were unusual for Andrea. She rarely used them unless someone was in the emergency room or she was having a major plumbing crisis. I honestly almost ignored it. Andrea sends me links to dog videos and bad fashion advice constantly. But something about that stark all caps command made the hair on my arms stand up. I set the stack of paper down on the floor and, leaning against a shelf lined with fluorescent light bulbs, I tapped the link. The video opened immediately. The first thing I saw was Trey. He was sitting on my couch in my living room, wearing a ridiculously smug smile I had never seen before. Not even when he finally beat that legendary level in his favorite game. The caption text scrolling across the screen read, "Rating my clingy boyfriend's most embarrassing moments." I stood there frozen, with the sterile scent of printer toner filling my lungs. I watched the video start, a silent scream building in my chest. Trey started his voiceover, adopting a high-pitched, mocking tone. So, my girlfriend made a TikTok video titled, "Rating the most embarrassing moments of my clingy boyfriend." The first clip flashed on screen. It was me, captured from a distance, standing in our kitchen just last week. I was wearing my ancient college hoodie, the gray one with the frayed cuffs, hair piled on top of my head in a ridiculous knot, focused entirely on what I was doing, making his favorite spicy chicken fajitas. He had been talking about them all week. The overlay text on the video read, "He thinks cooking equals wife material." It was accompanied by the skull emoji that signals death or extreme laughter online. Trey's voice continued, dripping with manufactured incredulity. "Dude, we have been dating 2 years, not 20. Chill out." The video had already racked up thousands of likes. I didn't even have to click the comments to feel the wave of public judgment. But I did. One comment, highly liked, read, "Bet he texts good morning handsome first every day." Trey had replied, and not just a simple like. He had written a paragraph confirming it, followed by 5 crying, laughing emojis. I could feel my hands begin to shake, causing the paper I was holding to rattle slightly. But I couldn't stop watching. My mind was screaming for me to press the home button, but my fingers were locked. The next clip was worse, somehow. It was from 3 months ago. We had been at Target. We were walking past the baby aisle, joking around, the kind of insignificant, silly conversation couples have when they are bored and comfortable. I had said something about not liking baby names that started with the letter K. If we ever have kids, I remembered saying, I am not naming them anything that starts with a K. Every Caden I meet is a nightmare. It was a completely meaningless comment, a fleeting thought. Trey had recorded it, somehow, without me noticing. The caption on this clip said, "Is already naming our future kids." I haven't said I love you yet. I stopped breathing. The air in the supply closet felt thin and dusty. I haven't said I love you yet. We had been saying, "I love you," for over a year. I had said it to him that very morning, before he left for his warehouse job. He had kissed me goodbye and said it back. Now, he was pretending online to thousands of strangers that our relationship wasn't even at that basic level of commitment. He was actively lying about the foundation of our relationship for internet clout. The third clip landed like a physical blow. It was from 2 weeks ago, after we had gotten into a fight because he had completely forgotten a dinner reservation for my birthday. I had been hurt, and I'd sent him a long text message explaining my feelings, asking him to please prioritize us sometimes. It was honest, vulnerable communication, exactly what I thought a healthy, adult relationship required. He had screenshotted the entire text, turning my sincere emotional expression into content. The accompanying text on the screen said, "The desperate pick-me who begs for attention." The comments section was full of people laughing and validating him. Men who write essays in text form are red flags. One user wrote. Another added, "Run, bro, he is psycho." A comment that already had over 200 likes. My phone started buzzing violently against the stack of paper I had set down. Texts were flooding in. I ignored them. my eyes glued to the screen as Trey delivered his final voiceover section. "All right, real talk. Y'all want to hear the craziest part?" he asked the camera, his smug smile growing wider. He then launched into a story about how I meal prep his lunches every Sunday, how I still iron my work shirts like we are living in the 1950s, and how I got upset when he didn't text back within an hour, like I don't have a job. The comments underneath the video were a flurry of strangers either laughing at me or telling him to immediately dump the clingy boyfriend. I walked out of the closet, the sound of my work shoes echoing faintly on the linoleum floor. My boss, Randy, took one look at my face. I must have been completely white, and asked if I was okay. I just told him I needed to leave early. Family emergency. He didn't argue. As I walked through the parking lot to my car, I saw the messages piling up. Andrea had sent 12 more texts. Some of them still in Andrea had sent 12 more texts. Some of them still in all caps. My mom had called 3 times. My cousin Sarah sent me a screenshot of the video simply asking, "Is this Trey?" That's when the second wave of realization hit me. This was not just about internet strangers. My family was watching my boyfriend humiliate me. My mom's church friends probably saw it. My coworkers who followed my social media definitely would. Everyone I knew was going to see Trey calling me desperate and clingy and crazy for doing normal things like cooking dinner and wanting honest communication in a 2-year relationship. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, letting the betrayal wash over me, before starting the engine and dialing Andrea back. She answered on the first ring, already raging, her voice tight and loud through the speaker. She told me Trey had gone live earlier that evening, with over 600 viewers, and that his friends had jumped into the comments, adding to the mockery. She had recorded parts of it and sent them to me. I had to pull over into the first empty gas station parking lot I saw because I could not drive and process that information at the same time. I pulled up the clips Andrea had sent. The live stream was infinitely worse than the original video. Trey was sitting there with his massive gaming headset on, laughing hysterically with his online friends who were flooding the chat. One of them wrote, "Bro, keep him around. Free meals at least." And Trey had actually laughed out loud and confirmed it. Facts. Like, "I'm not complaining about the cooking. I'm just saying he acts like we are married." Another friend commented, "Does he pick out your outfits too?" And everyone started roasting me about being controlling. Someone in the chat asked, "Is he watching this?" Trey got this sickeningly satisfied look on his face, the smug smile now fully blown into narcissistic triumph. He said, "Oh, he is definitely crying watching this right now. He is probably already typing me a paragraph." Then he mimicked a boy crying and typing frantically, and the comments went wild. The viewer count jumped to 800 people. I sat in that gas station parking lot, engine running, watching the person I loved and supported for 2 years mock me to hundreds of strangers. The only thing I could think was how I had ironed his work shirts that morning, how I had packed his lunch with a little note inside, because I am apparently a desperate psycho for doing nice things. I had texted him earlier, saying I couldn't wait for him to get home because I missed him, and he had responded with a heart emoji, probably while planning this whole humiliation. Andrea kept texting me, asking where I was. My mom called again. I ignored everything and just sat there, feeling like the world's biggest fool. 2 years of cooking his favorite meals, helping him study for his certification exam, supporting his streaming hobby, and being there when his grandfather died. And this is what I received in return: public humiliation for TikTok clout. Then I got mad, the kind of anger that burns away everything else, leaving the situation stark, clear, and simple. I looked at the time on my dashboard, 7:30 in the evening. Trey got off work at 6 and was definitely home by now, in my apartment that I had been letting him stay at rent-free for the past 7 months. He was probably making more content about his pathetic boyfriend. I put the car in drive and pulled onto the road, going at least 15 miles over the speed limit the whole way. I lived on the 2nd floor of an older building. There was a big dumpster right below my balcony that the entire building shared. Perfect timing, actually, because tomorrow was trash pickup, and the dumpster was only half full, still shaking from the live stream where Trey had mocked me for probably crying and typing a paragraph. I drove home on pure, focused rage. The adrenaline was a cold, clean force, burning away the shame and the confusion. The betrayal was no longer just a digital screenshot. It was a physical weight I needed to shed. It was a tangible violation of my trust and my home. I found street parking 3 blocks from my building. I got out and walked the rest of the way, the humid evening air sticking to my skin. Every step was deliberate. I was moving past the hurt, past the tears I had refused to shed in the gas station lot, and into a state of absolute, necessary action. I opened the building door with my own key. The apartment was quiet when I walked in. I immediately heard the steady drumming of water the shower was running. Typical Trey. He worked a dirty warehouse job, came home around 6 in the evening, and immediately took an extended shower, usually 40 minutes, while I prepared dinner. Not tonight, though. Tonight, the dinner plans, and indeed, all future plans, had been irrevocably changed. I walked directly to the kitchen sink and reached underneath for the industrial-sized black trash bags, the ones I bought in bulk because Trey generated so much waste. My hands didn't shake anymore. The grief had been supplanted by a strange, surgical calm. I moved like I was performing a necessary task, something that had to be done to restore order. I started in the bedroom, which, ironically, was the first place he had made his home. I didn't bother sorting. All his clothes, every shirt, every pair of jeans, every expensive hoodie he'd asked me to buy him, everything was yanked out of the closet and stuffed into the bags. His collection of sneakers, which he kept lined up under the window like a display at a shoe store, went next. I didn't even untee the laces. The sounds of the running shower still filled the silence. He was probably still deep in his self-care ritual, entirely unaware that the reality he knew was being systematically dismantled just 10 feet away. He was likely rehearsing his next live stream, planning how to turn this very evening into more viral content. I moved to his dedicated gaming corner in the living room. That space represented so much of what I had supported over the past 2 years. His streaming dreams, his need for a high-end setup, his gaming headset, which cost close to $300, his collection of high-end controllers, and his enormous stack of graphic tees, all advertising various sports leagues he followed obsessively, were swept into the mounting pile of black plastic bags. I was moving fast, propelled by the relentless surge of adrenaline. With each item I bagged, the sense of violation lessened, replaced by a feeling of power I hadn't realized I was missing. This was catharsis by volume. This was taking control back from the person who had used my loyalty as a prop for his online career. I dragged the first 2 full bags back to the bedroom door, where they were closest to the balcony. I paused, looking down at them. They smelled faintly of his cologne and cheap laundry detergent, a combination I used to find comforting, but which now felt tainted. 2 years. 2 years of my effort, my money, my emotional energy. I had believed in him. I had helped him edit his certifications for his job. I had listened to him rant about his coworkers. I had done the work of a partner, and he had treated me like a convenient appliance and a source of mockery. The realization crystallized everything. I wasn't overreacting. I was reacting appropriately to an act of extreme, calculated cruelty. The shower was still running. Trey really did take forever in there. I could hear him singing quietly to a song playing on his phone. The sound was an invasive, irritating noise now. I went back for the rest. I cleared out his side of the bathroom counter, his expensive face wash that I had researched and bought for his birthday, his various grooming products, his electric toothbrush. I grabbed his enormous 5-pound tub of protein powder and his entire collection of workout supplements from the kitchen cabinet. Then, the things that were truly his identity, his framed poster from a gaming tournament he went to last year, his signed mousepad. All of it went into the black bags. I was on the 5th bag when I finally heard a change in the bathroom. The water stopped running. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands remained steady. I knew I was running out of time. I doubled my speed, moving the last few remaining items, his Nintendo Switch, his tablet, and his spare phone charger, which he always seemed to need. I dragged the last 2 bags to the balcony railing, lining them up with the others, 9 bulging sacks of his life, ready for descent. I heard Trey moving around in the bathroom, probably starting his drawn-out skincare routine. Blissfully unaware of the vacuum, I was creating in the rest of the apartment. I grabbed the final, largest item, his PlayStation 5, his pride and joy, and worked quickly to wedge it into a 10th trash bag, twisting the thick plastic tie shut just as the bathroom door handle clicked. This was it, the moment of consequence. I took a deep, centering breath, waiting for the inevitable noise of discovery. As the shower turned off, I was already hoisting the third bag of Trey's belongings, his expensive graphic tees, over the balcony railing. I had 9 bags lined up neatly, 10 feet away from the edge. I heard the bathroom door open. Trey sauntered out, completely unaware, a towel wrapped precariously around his waist. His hair was dripping wet, sending little dark spots onto the wood floor I had mopped yesterday. He stopped dead in the hallway, his face transitioning from sleepy contentment to utter confusion as he scanned the empty space. His gaming chair was gone. His shoe rack was gone. His side of the closet was gaping empty. His eyes finally landed on me standing near the balcony door, the 10th bag, the one with his prized PlayStation 5, held securely by the plastic twist tie. "What are you doing?" he asked, the confusion in his voice quickly morphing into irritation. "Spring cleaning," I said, tying off the last knot on the bag. It felt ridiculously trivial, the words not matching the monumental action I was engaged in. "That's my stuff, Mike." "What the hell?" He took a step toward me, leaving wet footprints on my floor. "Your stuff," I repeated, the calm tone feeling like a weapon. "The stuff in my apartment that you don't pay rent for. This stuff." I carried the bag toward the railing. Trey started moving faster, his hands reaching out as if he could stop me with force. "Put that down." "That's my PlayStation." "Oh, you mean the one you use to stream about how desperate I am?" I held the bag over the balcony railing. Looking down, below I could see the growing pile of soft landings, his clothes, right in the center of the big green dumpster. "Mike, don't you dare." He was halfway across the room now, his eyes wide, the irritation turning to genuine panic. "Don't I dare what? Be crazy, be psycho, be desperate." My voice was measured, level, without a hint of the tears I had cried earlier. This was not grief. This was judgment. I let the bag drop. It landed right on top of the mound of clothing with a distinctly satisfying crunch. The sound was everything. It was the sound of consequences arriving, of 2 years of betrayal being repaid in one definitive moment. "My PlayStation." Trey rushed to the railing, leaning over, the towel slipping slightly, revealing his soaking wet skin. He stared down at the growing mess of his possessions, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. I was already grabbing the next bag, the one containing his work laptop and tablet. "You're insane," he hissed, trying to get past me to look at the damage more closely. "You can't just throw my stuff away! That had everything on it, you psycho!" "There's that word again," I murmured. I walked over to my desk and grabbed the huge, heavy, expensive gaming chair he used for his streams. I started dragging it toward the railing. "Psycho. You know what is actually psycho, Trey? Humiliating your boyfriend online for likes." "It was a joke, Mike. You can't take a joke." He lunged for the chair, but I yanked it away, fueled by the cold fire of my indignation. "A joke? You showed my face. You used my real conversations. My sister watched you mock me for caring about our relationship. My mom saw you calling me desperate. I used every ounce of my strength and shoved the heavy gaming chair over the balcony railing. It tumbled through the air with a clatter and landed with a loud, final thud, half in the dumpster, half leaning against the concrete curb below. Trey made a sound like a wounded animal, a strangled noise of pure loss. He rushed to the railing again, staring down at his scattered belongings. "You are going to pay for all of this. This is destruction of property. Bill me. Send me a TikTok about it," I said, already back inside, grabbing the remaining bags, his collection of hats, his fancy water bottles, his workout supplements, all heading for the same fate. "Stop!" Trey yelled, finally stepping away from the railing, trying to physically block me, but he was still dripping wet, still barely covered by the towel, and completely helpless. "No, you stop," I corrected him. "Stop making content about me. Stop calling me crazy for being a good boyfriend. Stop living in my apartment rent-free while you trash me online." That last sentence landed with the necessary force. I saw the immediate shift in his eyes. The realization hit him like a physical slap. This was my place. My name was on the lease. My furniture filled the rooms, my space, the space I had let him occupy because he claimed he needed to save money. Babe, let's just talk about this. I'll delete the videos. I'll apologize, he pleaded, his voice cracking, the panic real now. Apologize to who? To me? Or to your 600 viewers? I dropped another bag over the railing. It landed with a soft, final whoosh. Save it. I'm done talking. Where am I supposed to go? He asked, and the worry in his voice was not about me or his actions, but purely about his own immediate comfort. I don't care, Trey. Go stay with one of your boys from the chat, the ones who think keeping me around for free meals is a good deal. I went back inside and grabbed his backpack from the closet. I swiftly filled it with the absolute essentials: a toothbrush, a stick of deodorant, the basics he would need for the night. You have 5 minutes to get dressed and get out, I stated, walking back into the hallway, before I call the police and tell them you're trespassing. You can't kick me out, I live here. You stay here. You don't pay rent. You're not on the lease. This is my apartment, and I want you out. I shoved the backpack into his hands. His towel almost fell off, and he had to clutch it quickly. Mike, please. I didn't think you'd see the videos. I didn't think. You didn't think I'd find out. You didn't think my family would see. Or you just didn't think at all. I held up my phone. 5 minutes, Trey. Get dressed and get your stuff from the dumpster, or I'm calling the police. He stood there for another second, dripping and utterly defeated, before finally turning and walking toward the bedroom. I could hear him scrambling around, desperately searching for any clothes I hadn't yet thrown away. I walked back to the balcony and dropped the last few bags over the railing. The dumpster was pretty full now, his life piled high. The gaming chair was tilted sideways, half in and half out. I pulled out my phone and took several pictures of the scene, documentation of what I had thrown out, just in case he tried to claim I had stolen or taken more than I actually did. This wasn't just revenge. It was strategically securing my peace. With Trey gone, scrambling to salvage his belongings from the trash, I could finally breathe in the silence of my apartment. The air, which had felt thick with confrontation and rage moments ago, now felt thin, clear, and absolutely mine. The door closed, and I heard his footsteps descending the stairs, slow and heavy. I walked to the balcony and watched him. He stepped out of the building and walked straight to the big green dumpster, looking utterly defeated. He started digging through the black trash bags, pulling out his clothes and his electronics, piling them awkwardly on the ground around the dumpster's lip. He was retrieving his life from the refuse, the physical manifestation of his consequences. I pulled out my phone and recorded him doing it. I let the camera run for 30 seconds, capturing the scene: the defeated ex-boyfriend, the pile of his own prized possessions, the tilted gaming chair half in the trash. It wasn't about more revenge. It was about the final reclamation of my narrative. For 2 years, he had controlled what people saw of me. Now I would control what people saw of him. I posted the video to my own TikTok account with a single, succinct caption: "When the content creator becomes the content." Then I went back inside and sat down on my couch, the one he had been sitting on when he recorded his smug, mocking video. I finally let myself look at my phone. Andrea had been texting nonstop, demanding to know what happened. My mom was calling again. But before I could reply to them, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, but my curiosity was high. I answered. "Is this Mike?" A woman's voice, tight with anger, asked. "Who's asking?" I replied, pulling my feet up onto the couch, already bracing myself for a defensive rant from one of Trey's online friends. "My name is Susan. I think we need to talk about Trey." Susan. The name immediately clicked into place. She was Trey's older sister, the one I had heard him mention maybe twice in 2 years, always in passing. She sounded exhausted and profoundly angry, but the tone wasn't directed at me. That threw me off balance. Susan quickly explained that she was Trey's sister, 38 years old, married, with 3 kids, living 2 hours away. They weren't close, but her friends had been sending her links all evening to her brother's viral TikTok videos. She told me she had been trying to call Trey all night, but he wouldn't answer. So she had gone through their mom's contact list to find my number. What she said next completely changed the texture of the evening. She said she had been texting Trey for weeks, telling him to stop making those videos about me. She'd seen the earliest, smaller ones, where he was just making weak jokes about me liking to cook and plan ahead. She had warned him they were disrespectful and immature. He responded that I was being dramatic. She said, her voice shaking slightly. He said everyone makes relationship content now, and that you'd never see them anyway. The conversation was surreal. I was sitting there, listening to a complete stranger, my ex-boyfriend's sister, unload her embarrassment and shame. She kept apologizing, saying she should have driven down here and taken his phone away herself. She told me how people at her job had been sending her the clips, asking if that was her brother, and how her husband was furious that Trey was bringing their family online attention for this kind of behavior. It was validating, a bizarre form of emotional confirmation. At least someone in his family recognized how deeply messed up this was. Then she mentioned the apartment. She said Trey had been complaining to their mom about how I was always on him, about getting a better job or contributing more to the bills. Their mom had been telling Susan about it. So, his whole family knew he was living in my apartment, paying nothing while mocking me online for acting wifely. The sheer audacity of his entitlement was breathtaking. I told her the entire story, the dumpster, his stuff kicking him out. She went quiet for a long, heavy moment. Then she laughed. It wasn't a mocking laugh, but a real, genuine sound of relief. Good for you, Mike. He needed a reality check 25 years ago. I am so sorry you wasted 2 years on my immature little brother. We talked for maybe 20 more minutes. She gave me her personal cell number and told me if Trey tried anything, came back to the apartment, harassed me, posted more things, to call her immediately and she would handle it. She warned me their mom, Betty, would probably call me tomorrow to apologize, and I should be ready because Betty gets very emotional about family drama. After we hung up, I felt the last lingering threads of self-doubt dissolve. Trey's own sister thought he was trash. His family had been watching him disrespect me this whole time, and now I had his sister as some kind of bizarre, powerful ally in this mess. I finally texted Andrea back, kicked him out. I'm fine. Coming to Mom's tomorrow. My mom called immediately. I answered this time. She didn't ask questions or demand details. She just said, "Good boy," and told me my old room was ready whenever I needed it. But I stayed in my apartment that night. It was my place, and I wasn't leaving it. I ordered takeout, ate dinner alone on my couch, and watched my phone blow up with notifications while Trey's trash sat outside waiting for the city pickup. Despite the validation and the viral success of my own video, the one showing Trey digging through the trash, a persistent knot of confusion remained. Why had he escalated so violently and publicly? It didn't make logical sense for a man who claimed to love me and relied on me financially to suddenly burn down his entire life so aggressively. The next morning, Friday, I woke up to my phone screen burning with notifications. My TikTok video of Trey had gained significantly overnight, hitting over 200,000 views. The comments were an absolute circus. People were arguing whether I was a hero or a psycho, making jokes and sharing the clip. Trey's ex-fans were even digging up his older videos, where he was genuinely sweet about me and demanding to know what had changed. But that noise was immediately drowned out by the sound of my doorbell ringing repeatedly. I looked through the peephole. It was Trey. He looked rough, exactly like a man who had spent the night sleeping in a car or on a particularly uncomfortable friend's couch. He was holding 2 garbage bags full of his salvaged belongings. I didn't open the door. I just talked through the thick wood. "What do you want, Trey?" His voice was strained. "Mike, I need to get the rest of my things, and we need to talk. All your things were in the dumpster. You took what you wanted. We have nothing to talk about," he started pleading. "I'm sorry, Mike. I made a huge mistake. The videos were stupid, and I deleted them. I pulled up TikTok right there and checked." He was telling the truth. The original roasting video, the live stream clips, everything that featured me had been scrubbed from his account. But it didn't matter. People had already screened, recorded, and reposted them everywhere. Deleting the originals was like removing the single drop of dye from the pool after it had already turned the water blue. Deleting them doesn't fix anything. I told him through the door. My family has already seen them. Everyone I know has watched you call me desperate and crazy and clingy for being a good boyfriend. He kept saying he'd make it right. He'd post an apology. He'd tell everyone he was wrong. Then his voice changed, getting harder, the familiar arrogance returning. If you don't let me get my stuff, I'll call the cops, he threatened. I'll report you for destruction of property. You threw away thousands of dollars of my electronics. Throwing my PlayStation and laptop in the dumpster is illegal, and I have witnesses. I can press charges. I actually laughed out loud, a short, sharp sound that felt good and solid, then called them. I have pictures of everything I threw out. And it was from my apartment, which you don't pay rent for and aren't on the lease. You are technically trespassing right now, Trey. Do you really want to explain to the police why your landlord and girlfriend of 2 years threw all your stuff out? He went silent after that, but he didn't leave. I watched him pace back and forth in the hallway through the peephole. He tried a different approach. He started talking about how we'd been together 2 years, how happy we'd been, how one stupid mistake shouldn't end everything. I decided to open the door, just enough to look at him face to face. He looked absolutely miserable, bags under his eyes, messy hair, still wearing the same clothes from the day before. His 2 garbage bags of salvaged items were sitting sadly on the floor next to him. He looked at me with a hopeful expression, as if I were about to forgive everything because he looked tired. Do you remember what you said in the live stream? I asked him, my voice flat. The part where you mocked me for probably crying and typing you paragraphs. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Do you remember your friend commenting about keeping me around for free meals and you agreeing? Still nothing. Do you understand that you took my private conversations, my private moments, my face, and turned them into content for strangers to mock and abuse? He started rambling. I am so sorry, Mike. I was stupid. I got caught up in the views and the likes, and I didn't think about how it would hurt you. I love you, and I want to fix this. Love doesn't humiliate people for entertainment. I told him, looking him right in the eye. Love doesn't screenshot private conversations for likes. Love doesn't laugh with strangers about how your boyfriend is crazy for caring. Then I closed the door and locked it while he was still standing there, tears finally starting to run down his exhausted face. He knocked for another 10 minutes, but I didn't move. Eventually, I heard him pick up his bags and leave. Around noon, my sister Andrea and my mom showed up. We spent the afternoon together, eating and watching my phone notifications pile up. Andrea wanted me to post my own video detailing my side of the story. My mom wanted me to ignore all of it and focus on moving forward. I just wanted to understand what the hell had happened to turn the boyfriend I knew into someone who would mock me online. That's when my mom said something that stuck with me. Sometimes people get a taste of attention, and it changes them. She suggested Trey probably got his first viral video, liked how it felt, and kept chasing that high without caring who he hurt. Andrea said he was just showing his true colors, and I should be glad I found out now. Then my phone rang. Betty, Trey's mom. I had met her exactly twice in 2 years, both times briefly. Andrea reached for my phone and said, "Don't answer." But I was curious what she would say. I picked up. Betty started crying the second I answered. I just sat there, listening to my ex-boyfriend's mother sob while my own mom and sister watched me with concerned faces. Betty told me Susan had called her and told her everything. The videos, the eviction, him living rent-free. She said she had driven to wherever Trey was crashing and had gone off on him for hours. She wanted me to know she thought I was a lovely boy and didn't deserve any of this. I thanked her for calling, but told her this was between me and Trey now. She asked if there was any chance we could work it out, that he was so sorry, that he'd learned his lesson. I told her honestly I didn't know yet, and that I needed space to think. Andrea looked at me like I had lost my mind when I hung up. She asked why I said I didn't know if we could work it out, when the answer was obviously hell no. And honestly, I didn't even know why I said it. Maybe some stupid part of me still remembered the Trey from months ago, the one who actually seemed proud to be my boyfriend before he decided views and likes were worth more than basic respect. Saturday morning, my doorbell rang again. I looked through the peephole expecting Trey, but it was a delivery guy with flowers, a huge, ostentatious bouquet of roses. The card said, "I'm sorry. Please let me explain, I love you," with Trey's name scrawled at the bottom. I took them inside, pulled out the card, and threw the entire bouquet into my kitchen trash. I watched the flowers settle on top of the takeout containers and coffee grounds. Then, my phone started ringing. "Trey." I let it go to voicemail. He called back immediately. Voicemail again. The third call I finally answered. He launched into a practiced, reflective speech about how he understood why what he did was wrong. He wanted to take me to dinner to talk. I asked him what exactly he understood was wrong. "Posting the videos without my permission," he said. That was his entire understanding of the problem. Not the content itself, not the public humiliation, just the lack of permission. Like if he'd asked first, it would have been totally fine to call me desperate and clingy to thousands of strangers. I told him we were done. No dinner, no conversation, no working it out. I wanted him to stop contacting me. He started arguing, saying I wasn't being fair, that I wasn't even giving him a chance to apologize properly. Then he said something that made me see red, freezing the last bit of hope I had left for him. He said I was overreacting and proving his videos right by being so dramatic about everything. That if I'd just calmed down and talked to him, like an adult instead of throwing his stuff away, we could have worked through this like mature people. I hung up. I blocked his number. I blocked him on every social media platform I had. Andrea had been right from the start. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. Sorry there were consequences. Sorry his little content plan backfired on him. Sunday, I was lying on my couch trying to zone out with a long YouTube video when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar text message. The message said, "Hey Mike, just a tip. Your boyfriend has been coming to the PC gaming cafe for like 3 weeks now with some girl. They're here literally every night playing games together, and they are definitely together, if you know what I mean. Thought you should know since everyone's talking about him online." I stared at the screen. 3 weeks. That would have been before he even made those videos, before the live stream, before any of this blew up. He'd been going to some gaming cafe with another girl while coming home to my apartment every night, eating the dinners I cooked, sleeping in my bed. I screenshotted the message. It explained so much. Why he'd suddenly started making those videos calling me clingy. Why he'd acted like we weren't serious when we'd been together 2 years. Why he'd pretended we weren't even at the I love you stage yet. He was setting up his exit strategy, making me look desperate and crazy online so when he left, everyone would understand why. The reason he burnt down our relationship publicly wasn't for views alone. It was to cover up the fact that he was cheating. Armed with the anonymous text and the cold, hard certainty that Trey was cheating, the confusion vanished. The pain was still there, a dull ache beneath the adrenaline, but it was no longer confusing. It was simple, disgusting treachery. I remembered a specific black shirt Trey had been wearing constantly for the past month. He'd told me he won it at some Counter-Strike 2 tournament. I pulled up my phone, zoomed in on a photo, and managed to read the faded logo Game Hub Lounge Counter-Strike 2 Champions 2024. That was the place. I pulled up Google Maps and found it immediately. Game Hub Lounge in a strip mall near downtown, sandwiched between a bubble tea shop and a vape shop. I knew I couldn't just let it go. Not after the humiliation, not after the dumpster. I needed to see the full, disgusting truth for myself. Monday morning, I woke up to another text from the same unknown number. This time, it included a photo. Trey and some girl I had never seen, walking out of Game Hub together. His arm was casually slung around her shoulders. The timestamp was for Saturday night at 11:47 in the evening. The message said, "Told you. They were here again last night. She's here almost as much as the regular staff, lol." I sat there, staring at the photo, the last shred of stupid, lingering hope finally dead. This whole time, while he was making videos about me being clingy and desperate, he was building an entirely separate life with someone else. While he was letting me cook his meals and pay all the bills, he was spending his evenings with her. The thought solidified my resolve. I had already thrown his stuff in a dumpster. I had nothing left to lose. Andrea showed up at my door before I even called her. She had been awake early and had seen me post the cheating photo to our family group chat. She walked in, took one look at my face and said, "We are going to that gaming cafe tonight." She was ready for war. My mom called, pleading with me to let it go, saying he wasn't worth any more of my energy. But she didn't understand. This wasn't about energy, this was about dignity. Tuesday evening, Andrea picked me up at 7 o'clock. The Game Hub lounge was exactly where Google Maps said it would be. The windows were heavily tinted, but I could see the glow of computer screens inside, flashing against the glass. We sat in Andrea's car in the parking lot for 10 minutes. The anxiety was a tight coil in my stomach. This was the point of no return. I was about to confront my 2-year relationship and 2 years of lies in a public space. Then, I saw him walk in. Trey. He walked through the front door like he owned the place, not looking nervous or guilty, just confident. 30 seconds later, a girl pulled up in a small, beat-up hatchback and practically skipped inside after him. I couldn't see her face clearly from the car, but she was young, had long dark hair, and was wearing jeans and a university hoodie. "Well," Andrea said, pulling her phone out and turning on the camera, "I guess we go." The inside of Game Hub was sensory overload. It was loud, chaotic. Gaming computers lined the walls, bathed in harsh blue light. People wearing headsets were shouting into their mics, the air filled with the rapid sounds of gunfire and explosions from various games. It smelled strongly of stale energy drinks and hot pockets. I scanned the room and found them immediately, tucked away in a back corner. Trey and the girl, Carly, as I would later learn, were sitting side by side at adjacent computer stations. They were both wearing headsets, both completely focused on their screens. I watched Trey's hand reach over and rest casually on her knee. The last vestiges of my previous life snapped. I walked straight toward them. Andrea was right behind me, her phone held up, recording everything, just in case. I reached Trey's station and just stood there until I entered his peripheral vision. He looked up, saw me, and his face went completely white, draining of all color. He ripped off his headset and stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and crashed into the wall behind him. The noise cut through the constant digital chaos of the cafe. The girl looked up, confused by the sudden commotion, saw me, and then looked at Trey. I watched her face too as she realized something was terribly wrong. "So this is why you called me Clingy," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "You were busy every night with her." Trey opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The girl stood up and took a step back, her eyes wide. Other people in the cafe were starting to turn around and notice the situation. Someone nearby turned down the volume on their game. "How long, Trey?" I asked. He just kept shaking his head, looking desperately around the room as if searching for an escape route. The girl finally found her voice. "Trey, who is this?" "His boyfriend." I answered for him. Well, ex-boyfriend now, since he decided to humiliate me online while apparently dating you at the same time. She looked at Trey. "You told me you were single." "Oh, did he?" I turned back to Trey. "Did he also tell you he was living rent-free in my apartment? That I was cooking his meals and doing his laundry? That he called me desperate and clingy online while I was supporting his unemployed backside?" Trey finally found his voice, high and panicked. "Mike, stop. You're making a scene. This isn't what it looks like." The girl, Carly, interrupted him, her expression hardening into disbelief. "You told me your ex was crazy and you broke up months ago." Trey looked between the two of us like a cornered animal. I pulled out my phone and showed Carly the photo from Saturday night. Then I opened TikTok and showed her the videos people had reposted of him roasting me, the ones where you could clearly see the date stamps from just last week. I watched Carly's face turn redder and redder as she scrolled through the evidence of his deliberate lies. She looked up at Trey, her voice now dangerously quiet. "Are you serious right now? You made videos calling him Clingy while you were literally cheating on him with me." "I wasn't cheating," Trey tried to say. "Mike and I were basically over. We were having problems." "We were having problems because you were cheating." I corrected him. "Because you were spending every night here with her instead of coming home. Because you were building a whole relationship behind my back, and then making me look like the crazy one online." Carly grabbed her jacket and her phone. She looked at me, genuine remorse in her eyes. "I am so sorry. I had no idea. He told me he was single, and I would never." Then she looked at Trey, her voice dropping all pretense of kindness. "Lose my number? You absolute piece of garbage." And she walked out of the cafe, moving quickly toward the door. Trey tried to follow her, taking one desperate step, but I blocked his path. "When were you planning to tell me? Trey, were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to keep making videos about how desperate I was until I finally broke up with you so you could play the victim?" He stammered, saying it wasn't like that. That he'd met her here a month ago, and they'd just been hanging out as friends, and it only recently turned into something more. That he hadn't cheated, that he hadn't done anything wrong. "You are blowing this out of proportion, Mike. Like you always did. Like I always did," I repeated flatly. Andrea stepped forward, looming over Trey, and told him to shut up before she made him shut up. The cafe manager finally came over, a middle-aged man with wide eyes, and asked if there was a problem. "No problem," I told the manager, my voice calm again. "We were just leaving." I looked at Trey one last time. I hope she was worth it. I turned and walked out with Andrea right behind me. We got in her car and I just sat there. I felt absolutely empty, but perfectly vindicated. Sitting in Andrea's car after the confrontation, I felt the buzzing of my phone in my pocket and knew I had to deliver the final, definitive blow to Trey's online persona. The silence between Andrea and me was heavy, but it was a shared silence of successful, executed plan. We had achieved what we set out to do, expose the liar where he felt safest. Andrea was already busy, posting the video she had recorded of the entire cafe confrontation to her Instagram story. Within minutes, people were resharing it, commenting on it, finding Trey in the background of the shot and tagging him relentlessly. My phone started going crazy. Texts flew in from Susan, from Betty, from my mom, and from people I barely knew who had seen Andrea's video. Everyone was asking the same questions. If I was okay, if that was real, if Trey had actually been cheating. The validation was immediate and overwhelming. Then a text came from Trey. Actually, multiple texts. He claimed I had ruined everything, that Carly wouldn't talk to him now, that I had embarrassed him in public again. He called me psycho and swore he was glad we were over. The last text proved everything. He wasn't sorry for cheating. He was only sorry that his new girlfriend had found out. I opened TikTok and hit record. I looked awful. My hair was messy, my eyes were probably red, and Andrea was visible in the driver's seat next to me, looking concerned. I didn't care. I needed to say this for myself, for every person who had been called crazy for caring too much. I went off. I told everyone exactly what had happened. I spoke about the initial humiliation of the videos, how he had lived in my apartment rent-free, how I cooked his meals and packed his lunches like an idiot. Then I laid out the cheating, how he had been out at the Game Hub Lounge for 3 weeks, building a whole new relationship. I explained that the videos were not just a mean joke, they were a calculated cover-up, a way to make me look like the clinging problem when he was the one actively betraying me. He had the nerve to act like I was the problem, I said, my voice rising with righteous indignation, when he was the one lying and cheating and using me. He wasn't looking for a casual relationship, he was looking for an exit strategy that let him save face and get views. I finished with a warning. If anyone else gets a tip about their partner doing shady stuff, believe it. Don't sit around making excuses for them like I did. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt. And definitely don't let them gaslight you into thinking you're the unreasonable one when they're out here playing games in every sense of the word. That video hit 100,000 views in 16 hours. The response was immediate and viral. My story was everywhere, and Trey's brief career as a content creator ended with a whimper. A few days later, I was at the grocery store near my apartment, in the frozen food aisle, staring blankly at the bags of vegetables, trying to figure out what to cook for a quiet, Trey-less dinner. I literally ran into him. He was standing there, blocking the aisle, holding a pathetic wire basket containing instant ramen and a multi-pack of energy drinks. We just stood there, staring at each other for a second, the fluorescent lighting making both of us look washed out. He started talking, lowering his voice conspiratorially, trying to invoke privacy where there was none. He said we needed to have an actual conversation without Andrea recording or people watching. That he wanted to explain everything. That the girl from Game Hub meant nothing and he'd made a huge mistake. Which mistake, Trey? I asked, refusing to lower my voice. Making the videos, cheating, or getting caught. He flinched. He said all of it. That he was sorry that he'd been an idiot. That he never meant for any of this to happen. I asked him what he thought would happen. Did you think I'd never see the videos? Did you think I'd just accept you cheating? Did you think there would be no consequences for publicly destroying me? He mumbled that he wasn't thinking clearly, that he got caught up in the attention, and that Carly was just someone to game with, and it turned into more, but it wasn't serious. Then he said the line that made the last bit of control snap. The line that made me want to throw a bag of frozen peas directly at his head. If you'd just been less intense about the relationship stuff, he said, looking sincere, maybe I wouldn't have felt the need to look elsewhere. You were always talking about our future and acting like we were married when I just wanted things to be casual. I stood there in the frozen food aisle, my cart abandoned, looking at the man I had loved and supported for 2 years, rewriting our entire history to protect his ego. You have some absolute nerve, Trey, I said, my voice shaking with cold fury. For 2 years, you were perfectly happy letting me take care of you, cook for you, pay your rent, support your gaming hobby. You never once said you wanted things casual. You told me you loved me every single day. You talked about moving in together officially. You talked about getting engaged eventually. And now you are rewriting history to make it seem like I was the one pushing for too much. I cut him off when he tried to argue. You are a liar and a coward who couldn't even own his own choices. You made those videos and cheated because you wanted to, not because I forced you. You were looking for an exit and decided to blow everything up in the most public, humiliating way possible instead of just being honest. People were definitely staring at us now. An older woman with a cart had stopped nearby, pretending to look at ice cream, but obviously listening intently. Trey noticed the audience and lowered his voice, suggesting we take this outside. No, I said firmly. We are done talking, done explaining, done with all of it. I told him to lose my number, stop texting from random phones, and leave me alone. That if I saw him near my apartment or my work again, I would call the police. I walked around his basket and continued down the aisle. That night, Susan called. She confirmed Trey had been blowing up her phone, trying to get her to talk to me on his behalf. She told him absolutely not. That he made his bed and now he could lie in it. She said Betty, their mom, had officially kicked him out of their house, and he was couch surfing with friends. The public consequences were finally reaching his private life. The storm had passed, leaving Mike with a clean apartment and a silent phone after he had finally blocked Trey on every platform. Trey's last, desperate act of gaslighting in the frozen food aisle, claiming my intensity drove him away, had been the final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't about my failures, it was about his refusal to be accountable. My loyalty was never the flaw, it was the weapon he chose to turn against me. It wasn't about my failures, it was about his refusal to be accountable. My loyalty was never the flaw, it was the weapon he chose to turn against me. I spent the next few days scrubbing every last physical trace of him from the apartment. I threw away the remaining takeout menus he liked, the 2 shirts I had missed in the initial dumpster drop, and the spare toothbrush he kept in the medicine cabinet. The apartment felt larger, quieter, and fundamentally safer. The silence was no longer heavy with anxiety or anticipation. It was simply peaceful. It was the sound of ownership. Susan, Trey's sister, kept her word. She called again, not to check on Trey, but to check on me. She confirmed that Trey had been officially kicked out by their mother after the Game Hub video surfaced, and he was currently cycling through the couches of various online friends, the same ones who had laughed about the free meals. Susan apologized again for the way her family had failed to intervene earlier, and I accepted her apology, recognizing the complicated dynamics of her own past with Trey. She was a bizarre but welcome ally, confirming that the universe had, in fact, sorted out the justice I had initiated. Andrea came over the following weekend. Instead of pushing me to make more viral content or demand restitution, she simply brought me takeout, helped me organize my bookshelf, and allowed me to talk about the deeper pain beneath the rage. The pain of realizing that the 2 years I had spent building a future were all based on a lie. "You're not clingy, Mike," she said, looking straight at me. "You are committed." And that is what he hated, because commitment is work. He just wanted the perks without the price. Her words hit me hard, replacing the constant, buzzing fear that I was inherently too much for any partner. My inherent trait, my loyalty and desire for deep connection, was not a flaw. It was simply incompatible with a narcissistic user. It was that quiet weekend that led me to a final decision about the online presence of the saga. I opened TikTok, watched my most viral video one last time, the one with the caption, "When the content creator becomes the content." It had millions of views now, and the comments were still coming in by the second. I knew that video was powerful. It felt good to be vindicated, to be seen as the hero instead of the crazy ex. But the attention was also exhausting. Random people were recognizing me at the grocery store. Strangers were messaging me, demanding updates, wanting more drama. I didn't want my identity to be defined by the dramatic downfall of a cheat. I had sought justice, and I had achieved it. Now I needed peace. I hit the delete button. I deleted all of my videos related to Trey, the dumpster drop, the Game Hub confrontation, and the powerful video where I laid out the cheating accusation. I knew people had already saved copies and reposted them. That was inevitable in the age of the internet. But at least the content wasn't coming directly from my account anymore. I didn't want to be known as the guy who threw his boyfriend's PlayStation in the dumpster. I didn't need this kind of attention anymore. I spent the rest of the day zoning out, the apartment quiet and filled only with the pleasant smell of the dinner Andrea was making. I let my guard down, letting Andrea pour me a drink and simply sit with me in the living room. My emotional arc, which had begun in fear and swung wildly through humiliation and rage, finally settled on quiet self-acceptance. I had confronted the external enemy Trey, and the internal enemy, my fear of abandonment, and won both battles. I didn't need his family's validation, nor did I need the internet's. All I needed was the confirmation that I was worthy of respect and commitment, and I had given that to myself by decisively removing the toxicity from my life. I looked at Andrea, relaxed for the first time in weeks, and thanked her simply, genuinely. I cooked his meals, paid his bills, supported his hobbies, and got called desperate and clingy for it. Then I got cheated on while he played victim online. I survived the betrayal, the public humiliation, and the confrontation. I rebuilt my life, one quiet, simple, and self-respecting decision at a time. Goodbye, loser. I was finally free.